Seeing that we're in an era where modern Pokemon chase cards are pushing multiple hundreds, even close to $1,000 in some cases, I thought it would be worth looking at 5 old school cards that are incredibly rare and worth investing in over modern chase cards. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back. You're watching the channel Dr.Applesauce 2. My name's Will. It's another beautiful day here in Texas. I hope you guys know that I love you, God loves you, and that there is an awesome plan for your life. Today, I want to look at 5 cards that I think are really worth investing in over modern chase cards. And we're getting beautiful modern cards, beautiful modern chase cards, cards that are really, honest to goodness, insane and great. And I'm not trying to downplay these cards at all, but as far as rarity, as far as nostalgia, as far as just overall incredibly cool, rare cards, I think there's some cards that we could be looking at that are not incredibly super cheap, but I think are as cheap as they're going to be, especially now that the huge Pokemon boom is over. And I think you might be happier if you have the means of picking up some of these cards over some of the more brand new modern chase cards. So we're going to jump right in. And the first card that I want to talk about is a classic that everybody loves. We're going to look at the Lugia from Neo Genesis, the first edition Lugia specifically. This card is absolutely gorgeous. It is a fan favorite for many people, and it's the debut of the Lugia Pokemon in the Pokemon TCG. Additionally, it was the first Pokemon card to ever have an attack that cost 3 different types of energy. And if we look, we can go over here and we can look over at TCG Player and see that it has had a crazy pricing history. Right now, you can see that a first edition holo foil on TCG Player is averaging about $620. It did have a weird dip, but if you look over the time of the graph, it is just slowly rising. Also, if you head over to eBay and take a look at eBay, you can see that the prices on the first edition Neo Genesis Lugia vary greatly. You can see right here, somebody's got a BGS 9 first edition for $3,000, and then you can see an unlimited for $399, and you can see down here a first edition raw one for $600. So the prices do vary greatly, anywhere from, I'd say, $400-500 raw to multiple thousands of dollars for high grades, depending on condition. So there are a lot of options if you're wanting to pick up one of these cards either graded, or if you wanted to just pick one up raw to have a nice, good looking raw copy for yourself. And additionally, as I go through and talk about all these cards, a great place to look for cards like this is conventions. If you know what to look for and say you're wanting one of these nicer cards, you can go and look at conventions and find sometimes raw versions of these cards that maybe wouldn't grade a 10 but are in decent condition. Also, one of my best friends had a first edition Neo Genesis Lugia in a CGC 8, and he traded it for a card from an indie TCG. To his eternal regret, that card that he traded it for is now worth like $100. The second card that we want to talk about is one of the most popular Pokemon of all time, and it is actually the debut, the first time we ever see this Pokemon on a Pokemon card, and it is the first edition holo Umbreon from Neo Discovery. Now, this card is incredibly popular, just like the Umbreon that everybody's crazy about from Evolving Skies, but this was the first ever debut of Umbreon in a Pokemon card, and being arguably the most popular evolution ever, at least in my opinion, Umbreon is the most popular evolution ever. This is an insane card to add to your collection. You can look at the market values on a first edition copy of this card, around $400 to $500 for a raw first edition. That's right about where you're going to be paying for a Umbreon from Evolving Skies, for a piece of history, for the first Umbreon ever, which is a gorgeous card. And if you go over and look at eBay, you can see as well, you can get a wide spread of values, anywhere from thousands of dollars for graded copies to $500 or so for a raw copy, depending on the condition of this card. I think this is a really interesting one specifically in this list because one of the most popular modern cards right now is the Umbreon, selling for fluctuating $400 to $500. This Umbreon is absolutely much rarer than the Umbreon from Evolving Skies. I think it's a beautiful piece to add to your collection if you're wanting to get a hold of some things and hold them over time to see them increase in value exponentially. Before we get into the final 3, since we are talking about modern stuff, there are modern Pokemon card sets that release all the time. And I just want to let everybody know that I always make these sets available to my patrons for under MSRP. Temporal Forces is about to release, and I'm actually going to do something really special for Temporal Forces. I'm going to make booster bundles available to my patrons for $20 a booster bundle. When you factor in my selling costs and the cost to get shipping shipping materials. That is essentially what I am paying for these booster bundles. Every set, I do a drop like this for my patrons. Sometimes it's just product available at under MSRP from a source that they can trust. Sometimes it's really special cool deals like this. So if you want to be a part of the Patreon, there's a link down in the description below. Go join up for $5 a month. Be able to get modern cards on new releases from a source that you can trust, always under MSRP. And sometimes I do really special deals like this. So check the link in my description below if you want to be a part of Patreon. But we're not talking about modern too much today. We're talking about sick vintage cards that you can get instead of modern cards. And one of the coolest vintage chase cards, in my opinion, is the Shining Magikarp from Neo Revelation. Now, this card was one of the first ever shiny Pokemon to appear in the Pokemon TCG alongside with the shiny Gyarados. I actually have both of them in an unlimited version that I graded myself. Got an 8 and a 9. Love those cards. They're not first edition, but specifically we're talking right now about the first edition Shining Magikarp from Neo Revelation. This is a wonderful card. I really enjoy this card personally a lot. I know a lot of people like Magikarp just because he turns into Gyarados, and it's like, I don't know, kind of like a type in a shadow of our normal lives. Like, oh, hey, everybody hates Magikarp, but he turns into Gyarados. Like, your potential is unlimited. You might not be where you want to be right now, but who knows one day what you will become, right? So this Shining Magikarp is a great card. You can say we have a value for a first edition holofoil around $420. Other than the fact that it looks beautiful, it can be picked up for a decent price for a first edition vintage card. And heading over to eBay, you can see that you can even get some graded copies for a pretty good price. Look right here, we got a PSA 9 that went for $660, and then a PSA 10 that went for about $3,000, or you could grab yourself a raw copy for around $400, $500. Whatever you decide to get, I think the Shining Magikarp is a really unique and beautiful and iconic card that's worth having in your collection. Next up is a personal favorite of mine, a little bit of a dark horse, and it is the Dark Gengar from Neo Destiny. The Dark Gengar from Neo Destiny isn't anything crazy. It's not the first appearance of anything. It doesn't really have any special, it's the first time anything ever happened with this card, but it just looks cool. And if you know anything about Pokemon and Pokemon cards, Gengar is one of the most popular Gen 1 Pokemon that the cards tend to do really well over time. That's why a lot of people are excited about the new Gengar cards that are coming out with the new Temporal Forces sets that I just talked about, because Gengar always does so well. The first edition Dark Gengar from Neo Destiny looks really cool. The artist did a fantastic job on it, and honest to goodness, for a first edition holofoil that you could pick up for around $200 or so, it's not a bad price for a piece of history like this that could turn into something incredibly valuable in the future. If you head over to eBay, you can see a wide range of offerings of this card. You got $200 for a raw copy. You have $700 for what is that, a PSA 9? Not that bad. $425 for a BGS 8.5. There are a lot of options on this card that if you're wanting to pick up something that kind of maybe sort of speculate on how it may do really incredibly well in the future, but for that price point, it's around the price point, $200 to $300 is around the price point of modern chase cards that you might get out of a set that you might have to open 5 or 6 booster boxes and maybe get one. I think it's a cool pickup if you're a fan of vintage cards and you're a fan of Gengar and you're a fan of placing a bet on something that might be worth the investment in the future. Guys, do me a favor, if you're enjoying this video, give it a thumbs up. It is free for you to do that, and it helps the video so much. And if you hit that subscription button and the notification bell, YouTube will actually tell you when I put up new videos in the future. And the number one card is not going to be a surprise to anybody. Yes, we're going to go to Charizard. Yes, Charizard brings all the boys to the yard. Yes, it's just, there's nothing, we can complain about it. We can speculate. Charizard's always going to be the most popular. It's just the way that it's going to be. And the number one pick on this list is the first edition Shining Charizard from Neo Destiny. This was the first Shining Charizard ever introduced into the Pokemon TCG, and it is always going to hold a very special place in the history of Pokemon and in Charizard collectors' hearts. This is the number one pull from Neo Destiny as well. And honestly, it's a great looking card. I remember before all of the Pokemon craziness, when you could find these first edition Charizards from Neo Destiny in a raw, nice condition for around $600 or $700, and then that just skyrocketed from there. And even today, you can't really find them at that price. And honestly, as beautiful as this card is, it really does garner an incredibly high price point for the first edition versions. This is one of the few on this list that I would recommend if you really just want this card and you don't care about it being first edition, go for an unlimited holofoil. That's my opinion, because the unlimited holofoil is so much cheaper. But if you got the money to bling out and potentially get something and save it as an investment for years and years and decades down the line, first edition is definitely the way to go. And you can head over to eBay and look at some sold listings, and you can see a wide variety of sold. We got a BGS 9 sold for $4,000. We have an Unlimited that sold raw for $500. We have a PSA 8 that sold for $3,000. Raw copies of this card can easily fetch $1,000. So this is the most expensive one on the list, but it is the one that is on the highest pedestal of them all. It is a great card. Which one of these is your absolute favorite? For me personally, if I'm going to go out and buy one of these, I'm probably going to go with the Dark Gengar, just because one, it's the cheapest on the list, and two, I think it's the coolest artwork, and it's probably the biggest risk, the biggest, maybe something really cool could happen to it play. So that's the one that I'm going to go for. But let me know in the comments below, which one of these would you go for? If you, instead of buying a $400, $500 chase card from a new modern set, if you were going to go pick up one of these, which one of these would you pick up? I want to know down in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, YouTube says you'll probably like that one as well. So go give it a watch and let me know what you think. And like I always say, my friends, find somebody to love and serve today. Be the change you want to see in the world. See you next time.